There's some truly terrible author advice out there because anybody can go on the internet and say anything they like without being qualified. And so we've already done a video on really bad but popular author advice. It was so successful that we are doing a part 2 and a part 3, and we're just going to keep going because there's so much bad advice out there. Now, as with anything, you are going to have to make sure you're qualifying where you're getting that information from. So you need to look at the credentials and the standing of the people you are getting information from. If you have not looked me up yet, you should. You should look up my credentials. I am all over the internet. You can see that I'm an industry leader in the publishing space, in the social media marketing space, in the business growth space, in a lot of different places. So I am very qualified for this, and you can look that up without listening to me tell you about it. But even if you verify me, the things that I'm telling you, you should also run by other people. You should do your own research on. Don't take my word as the gospel truth just because you know that I'm a trustworthy source. Look these things up, do your due diligence, and make sure you're making the right decisions for you when it comes to this. And this goes across the board for anybody you're finding on TikTok live streams, for anybody you're finding on YouTube. Anybody can say anything. Anybody can put up fake qualifications. You've heard my stories about working with editors who fudged what they were doing to make themselves look better and then just completely missed so much. So make sure you're going with qualified sources and that you back up what they are saying. With that in mind, let's get into today's myth busting. One of the big things that we hear in the publishing space is that you can self-edit your own novel, and that's not true. That's not true. Please don't ever self-edit your own novel. Now, I'm not talking about self-editing before sending it to a professional. You should do that. That's incredibly important. We talk about the importance of that all the time here on our videos and on our live streams. But if you think that you can just self-edit your book and then put it out in the world, that is false. It is also false to think that your best friend who's an English teacher can edit your book for you. They cannot. You have to work with a professional editor because the rules of grammar change. Here's a shocker. They change. There are things that are industry standards. There are things that you are too close to see. There are things that people are not qualified to see. A professional editor, truly qualified professional editor, will be able to do that for you. So I, as a multi-time best-selling author, do self-edit my books. I have Grammarly, I have Per Writing Aid, and even so, I am so close to my manuscripts. And I forgot to mention, I'm a former teacher too. I am like credentialed in this space. I miss stuff. I miss a lot of stuff. Thank the good Lord for my editors and my proofreaders because they catch all the things that I miss because I'm too close to it. You cannot, period, full stop, edit your own book, period, full stop. And you cannot have your friend, your mom, your sister, your teacher person do this for you. You gotta work with a professional. It is of the utmost importance because it's really going to show in your book if you try to self-edit that. Don't self-edit. That's not going to work. Another big one that we see is people DIYing their own book covers. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. We can tell your skill level, and your book cover makes or breaks your book sales. If it looks homemade, if it looks like you made it in Canva, if it looks like you made your book cover or you worked with a really low budget person, it will end your book sales. Don't DIY it. Your skills are not there. Unless you are a professional of 10 or more years, no. The answer is no. And I come to you with this as a graphic designer, professional graphic designer, photographer of over 20 years. Everyone can tell. Not just the professionals, everybody can tell. Do not DIY your cover, period, end of story, full stop. Another truly terrifying one that we're hearing a lot on TikTok is that you can use AI to write or to plot your novel. And you can't. You can't do that. Now, we have lots of videos backing this up. From a legal perspective, we have our lawyer here breaking this down in episode after episode after episode after episode. You can't use AI to write your novel and have copyright protection, meaning anybody can do anything they want with your book. It does not qualify for things. We know that KDP and the other printers have been very clear on disclosing when AI has been used to write or to plot or to do anything other than like a spell check on your novel. We're including restructuring sentences for you. That is all generative AI. You're not allowed to do that. There's no copyright protection. You have to disclose those things when you're using them. And the publishers have all come out and said, if you've used AI to write, to plot, to assist you in any way other than like a spell check, you cannot submit to us. So you cannot be using AI to generate your novels. And that means your manuscript. That means your book cover. That means anything connected to your book. It just destroys your copyright. And the publishers, won't even touch you. You will be so far out in the cold on your own. You can't use AI to plot it. You can't use AI to plan it. We do have a full playlist on how you can ethically and legally and creatively be using AI to incorporate into your author life and make it better and easier, but it's not writing. So we'll link the entire playlist for you down below on how you can be using it to save time and effort and to really grow what you're doing. And also those episodes breaking down what you cannot be doing inside of the publishing space with AI. Another truly out-of-pocket piece of advice that I have heard over the years is that if you struggle with your writing, you should find a co-writer. That is just terrible, terrible advice. Writing with a co-writer takes a very special type of relationship. You have to be very, very specific and contractual on the co-writer that you are working with because anything could happen in that relationship. You have to have very heavy contracts, and we have full videos with our lawyer breaking this down for you on the channel. You have to make sure you spell out who's doing what, who's responsible for what money you're putting into it, how you're splitting your royalties. There's so much documentation that has to go into this and be signed legally before you jump into this. Then you have that attachment to them forever. So let's say one of the writers does something that is unethical, or they do something that gets them shunned inside of the book community. You are then tied to them forever. So what happens when that goes down? What happens if you are going to continue to have the book out there? Are you going to pull the book? What happens to royalties? How are you going to get away from being associated with them? I personally have worked with a number of people who have done some things that I no longer agree with, and I've cut those ties with them, but I'm forever tied to them because of all the things that we've done together in the past. So writing with a coworker or a co-writer just because you don't know how to write your book does not serve your purpose. There are so many other things that need to be considered for this, and chances are a co-writer is not going to be able to help you. And when it comes to co-writing, you should be in the same place and space. You have to be on the same skill level. So if you're struggling and you pull in somebody who's not struggling, they're going to have to carry you through this project, and you don't need to be that person. So make sure that if you are going to ever consider working with a co-writer, you're doing it the right way for the right purposes and on the same skill level. If you personally are struggling with your writing, hire a developmental editor, period, end of discussion. A developmental editor will be able to come in, look at what you've already got, and help you fix it. They're going to be able to help you plot things. They're going to be able to help you refine what you've done so that you have a cohesive manuscript. A developmental editor is going to be invaluable if you struggle at all with your writing. But going into a co-writing relationship to fix it doesn't serve you, doesn't serve them, does not serve your business, does not serve the publishing space. Please don't do that as your backup for, oh no, I don't know how to write my book. I also heard a lot of discussion and a lot of questions from people wondering whether or not they can take their manuscript and just indie publish it with the intent of getting the attention of the big publishers and getting a traditional contract. In no world are you taking your book and indie publishing it and getting a traditional contract. The very, very, very rare exception to this is if you are incredibly famous and you're making thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars. We're talking like 6-7 figures on that book. Will a traditional publisher ever want to get that book? And if you're making that much money, why would you then give them the vast majority of your royalties? That's ridiculous. You cannot take your book and indie publish it and then expect a traditional publisher to want it, because now they don't have any control over it. They don't get to say how it's published. They don't get to build the fandom. They don't get to fix and tweak what you've already done. If you put it out into the world, honey, baby, child, it is out in the world, period, done. That is the end of the conversation. So if you have a book and you want it traditionally published, you must go through the traditional publishing querying process. You will have to wait many, many months for them to look at your books and decide, yes, I'm going to take this book on or not. And if you're going through the agent, and you should, because those small and medium-sized publishers, not worth it at all. You have to have an agent to get to the bigger publishers. That's going to take even more of a process. You have to get your agent. Your agent then has to shop that book around. It is a process, and you can expect it to take minimally a year. And that's if you're incredibly lucky. You're probably looking at a couple of year process here. If you want your book out in the world, you can indie publish it, and it is out in the world, period. And that is going to be where your book lives. You're going to have to do your marketing. You're going to have to work on that. And then you can work on another manuscript to potentially query for that traditional contract. But if you want to go traditional, you must walk that path. Don't put it out into the world and say, oh, I'm going to make a few sales and get their attention, because you are not. They're not going to take you. I will tell you that even people who are making a really good income on this and are on all the lists and are on the top lists on Amazon and things like that, they're not getting the publishers knocking on their door. We're talking like you need to be making hundreds of thousands of sales, millions of sales to get people's attention. And at that point, you're already making the money. Why are we giving it away to a publisher? We also need to have a discussion about friending all of the authors. We tend to have this mindset in the publishing space that if you see an author, you must be friends with that author. You must friend them on Facebook. You must friend them on social media. You must try to talk to those people. You have to be friends with all the authors. And this is not a good idea. You should not just be automatically friending people because the word author is in their tagline. You do need to make sure you're finding like-minded authors. You don't just want to accept friend requests that come in, and you don't want to send friend requests if there's not a specific reason. I will say that we have seen so many people just randomly friend authors, and then it goes really badly. From my own personal experience, there was a really big chunk of time when if an author friended me, I just accepted that on the basis of being another author. And it backfired so hard. I got so many men being creepy in my DMs. I got people who were trying to pitch me things, trying to get me to buy their books. Like, I'm another author. I don't need to buy your book. I'm not a reader. They're doing very spammy things, very inappropriate things. So I do not accept those friend requests unless we have mutuals, unless there's a reason, or unless it looks like a good fit for me. I do not just blindly accept those friend requests. And I very, very rarely send out friend requests unless I have some kind of connection to them. If I want to be friends with an author, I will go to their social media and I will actively participate in their social media. I'll be in their comments. I'll show up to support them. I'll have conversations with them. If it goes for a while and there's a reason, maybe we'll DM, maybe we'll chat, but I'm not sending those friend requests until there is a reason. I am building the relationship before trying to jump into those conversations. And I know we want to build up our friend circle, but we have to be so careful about that. I've got lots of videos on finding author friends. Make sure you check those out. It's very valuable content, but don't just accept things because somebody's sending you a request, and don't just send out a ton of them. Now, this one is going to be controversial. I'm going to stand in opposition of what most authors will tell you for this. What they say is that your book launch actually matters. And I say, for most people, it doesn't. Your book launch is not some big deal. It is not the make or break of your success. We get so stressed and overwhelmed about these book launches, and it just doesn't serve most people. Having a book launch doesn't really matter, and the success of your launch doesn't really impact your sales. Now, it does matter if you are trying to hit one of the lists, if you are trying to get on the New York Times, if you are trying to get in USA Today, if you're trying to get into one of those big lists, you first have to qualify. Most indies don't qualify, but you would have to qualify. And then, yes, your launch would matter. You have to have a certain number of books within those first certain days. Outside of being on one of those lists and actively working toward one of those lists, your book launch doesn't matter. If you get 5 sales, if you get 30 sales, if you get 200 sales, it's not going to really change very much. Now, if you get an extreme amount of sales, if you are like super famous and you're getting hundreds and hundreds of sales during that pre-order, okay, that can rank you on Amazon. That can rank you on Barnes & Noble, and that helps you. Having that advanced placement will last you for a little bit. For a little bit. You still have to maintain it. So just because you hit a higher number on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or wherever it happens to be, doesn't mean it's going to stay there. It just means for right now, you've done really well, and you have to maintain that. So does your book launch matter? Not really. Pre-orders don't even matter. I personally, and you've heard me talk about this a lot, I don't even do pre-orders for most of my books. Like, I think I did them for my early books because I was told I was supposed to. I fell into the trap. And it didn't matter because no matter how many I got, it didn't impact my sales. I then had to do marketing to get those sales in. I now do surprise releases, meaning I write a book, I get everything ready to go, and then I show up on social media one day and say, new book, it's available for you right now. And I have always done better on my secret releases than I've ever done on any pre-order ever, whether I was established or not. So your launch, when we put all this time and effort and money and stress into it, it is not worth it for most people. You're not going to get huge numbers. You're not going to get on a list. So do you need to worry about your launch? No, not really. Should you put effort into it? Yes. If you're going to do a pre-order, do you need to be marketing? Yes. Do you need to put effort into this? Yes. But do you need to let it consume every minute of every day and every ounce of your emotional availability? No. No, you do not. And you do not need to stress because your launch didn't go the way that you planned. Your book's success comes from how you market it after the fact. What you do before your book is out in the world doesn't matter nearly as much as what you do after it's out in the world. So for most people, I want to see you doing in a very, very short pre-order period if you're going to, or just launch the book. Just launch the book and then pay attention to your marketing. Once it is out in the world, you can make sales. Before that book is out in the world, you're not really making sales. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's going to work best for you, for your business, for your brand, for your book, for that particular manuscript, and for how you're going to be able to function during this time of life. Because if you're launching it during a busy time of life, you've got a problem. And if you're launching this during a quiet time, maybe you don't have a problem. So you need to pay attention to all the circumstances to make the best decisions. Now, I am not saying pre-orders are bad. I'm not saying launches are bad. I'm not saying big launch things that you're doing for marketing are bad. It's fine. I'm just saying that we don't need to put so much pressure on ourselves because it's not that deep. It's not that big. You have the ability to really do some cool things once your book is out. In fact, my best-selling novels, please listen to me, lean in on this one. I have had multiple best-selling novels, meaning the very, very tops of the list. Like of all of the books in existence, my books have been there. Not one of those books made any of those lists when they launched, when they were released to the world. It happened months, even longer after, when I did the appropriate marketing, that they hit those really, really high numbers. I had a book that was number 7 in the entire Amazon store. I had 3 of them that were on the top 100 list. And all of those were well after those books were out into the world. Do not put the stress and overwhelm on your launch. Your launch is not that deep. The success of your book comes after. Okay, there's a lot more that we can go through, but we're already getting a little long in this video. So drop your advice down below that you want me to red flag, green flag for you. And stick around because part 3 is coming out soon. I've got a whole list of really cool, I say really cool, really interesting pieces of author advice that are floating around in the world that we're going to debunk for you. We'll see you in that episode and in our daily episodes helping you navigate the world of publishing.